if you are already God, if you are the creator, if your nature is already Buddha nature, why do you have to go through a spiritual awakening journey, right? I'm going to explain that and so much more through this spiritual awakening journey graph, which is kind of poorly drawn, but it comes in a flow. And I'm going to go deep into it and explain the nuances. It's all going to make sense when you understand this bigger picture. It's going to make sense why they say, the wise ones say, all is truly well. It's going to make sense how you have come into this human experience, why you are doing this to yourself, even when it may not seem like it's aligned and the highest vibration and all that, why there is suffering in the world. So this comes from the deepest insights of my own spiritual awakening journey, and having helped hundreds of people through mentoring them through their spiritual awakening journey. My name is Ra Netcher, by the way, if we haven't met yet, and I'm so excited for you to understand this. This really changed my understanding of why we are going through this, and it actually came from a question somebody asked me, and the answer came from the depth of my being. So as we go into this video, this graph will come from the flow. So take a moment, take a deep breath, relax, let go, and let's get right into it. Most people have it backwards. Most people who are looking for God, for enlightenment, for the kingdom of God within, so many different names for it, self-realization. They have it misunderstood. They have it upside down. Because all we think is determined by what we have been trained to do, which is look for it outside. That's what we have done all our lives. We have tried to rely upon a sense of happiness based on things outside of us. And when it comes to a spiritual quest, we also try to do that. We look for it in a temple, in a church, in a mosque. We look for it in a scripture, in statues, in people, in deities. We look for it even in experiences, even though they are not external. In a way, they are based on external circumstances. So even if it's an internal experience, let's say, because it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, it's part of the temporary things that come and go, like all the external things. And we still look outside in some way for the solution. At the same time, while not realizing, the one who is looking is the solution. The one who is seeking is the one being sought. Hmm. You are looking for yourself this whole time without realizing it. Hmm. Hmm. And because of that, no matter how this dream goes, this is so dreamlike, this journey. So dreamlike. Hmm. You're looking for it. You're on this quest. Hmm. You go to different places. You are led by different people. Hmm. You sometimes get stuck in some tight place. You can't move forward, or you think you can't. We get lost on this dreamlike journey, and we have no idea what we are trying to do, where we are going. Hmm. 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 And as long as you keep going, somehow when you have let your guard down, somehow when you're not even looking, sometimes, suddenly appears all that you've been looking for. Hmm. Hmm. Your highest, most purest desire, your goal appears right in front of you, nonchalantly. Hmm. Hmm. It becomes clear to you that hmm, it's here. Hmm. Hmm. So does that mean that all this searching and seeking was a waste? Not at all. Not at all. It's all part of this beautiful journey, this dream. In order for you to come to realize that it was already here this whole time, you had to first go through that journey of externalizing it and searching for it on the outside and like feeling lost, feeling stuck, feeling hopeless, hopeful, going through these ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. That's the game that you're playing with yourself. Hmm. Hmm. And it's all happening according to the big plan. Even though when the little plan may not seem to be working out, the big plan is going really smoothly. Because the big plan is for you to discover who you are by also discovering who you are not. You're building all sorts of contrast. Contrast is essential for you to see. Because how would you see a white dot on a white sheet of paper? Let me show you. Let's say I put a white dot. You can see my ring light over there. If you put a white dot on this, let's say I don't have a um, white marker pen at all. They don't make it for whiteboards, so it's really hard to find a white marker pen because it just doesn't make sense. Like imagine this is a white marker pen and I put a white dot right here. Do you see it? I don't see it. I mean, you see it, but it's hard to recognize. You see it all the time. It's always there. You're seeing it in plain sight. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. But you cannot see a point that is white on a white surface. But when there is any sort of contrast, and even a small black dot like this, you can easily see. It's unmistakable. So you are building all of this contrast of discovering what you are not by going through the ups and downs of the human experience. In reality, you were always there. You have always been there. You started out from a complete knowing of this entirety of who you are. Emptiness and fullness. And from that state, it's like you have everything, you know everything, and there's absolutely no problem. That's where you started from. That is your divine nature. So because you started from that place of knowing everything, seeing everything, let's say my drawing is going to be really bad, handheld like this. Let's say this graph, sorry for the really bad drawing, but you already started at the top. You think you're starting at the bottom, and you have to learn your way up and go ups and downs. You're already at the top here at 100%. You're not at zero here. So you're already at 100%, and it's done. It is done. It is done. It is done. But because you're at 100%, you have nothing to compare it with. So what you do is you go from being spirit and God, from the fullness and emptiness of who you are, you go down so you can experience these ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And then you're gathering the data of experience of being everything that you're not, so that when you come back to 100%, which is, I know it does it looks kind of, you know what I mean. Once you see, I'm not an artist here, but this could be considered modern art in some places. Maybe we will go for $1 million. Who knows? But once you come back to 100, after going through these ups and downs of being human, then because you know what it is to be like something other than spirit, through this exploration of limitations, through this exploration of duality, then you have a much deeper understanding of who you are. So the difference between being here just before you dove into this incarnation to experience humanity, and after having experienced all this, you don't need to die to be here. You need to come back to your fullness, your experiential realization of who you are, which is known as enlightenment. So you have the maturity of going through a human life. Here you are an innocent baby, and in the eyes of the baby you see wisdom, you see innocence, you see the divinity. That's everything there. But what the baby gathers through this is the wisdom of being human, the wisdom of going through duality. That wisdom really makes you mature in of the world, mature in all these ways that we deal with duality, all the ways where we learn to love, where we learn to take care of ourselves, of others. We learn to forgive, we learn to appreciate, we learn to actually see the light in everything. These falls, these ups and downs are actually our way of really getting to know different expressions of enlightenment, different expressions of duality, in which enlightenment expresses itself through all these different aspects. And all these aspects are different facets of enlightenment. These are different colors of your own expression. And now that you've been through these ups and downs, you know all these different sides of yourself. So you're on this adventure back home. You're returning to the same point. Right? So this adventure, even though it's taking you back right here, you're taking the scenic route. You're going all around the world to come back home. You're wandering in the desert, through the valleys, through the peaks, right? But once you come back home, now you know how it feels, all of this. So when you're back here, you are at a completely different level of maturity than where you started, even though you're back home. So imagine you left for a world trip adventure, Imagine you have taken 40 years, let's say, to go on a world trip, travel all the different countries, and you have been sharing your experiences on social media and on YouTube, and people are doing news coverage of you. Oh, this person has been traveling the world for 40 years. Like there are so many people that have heard of, oh, somebody did it on a motorcycle all around the world, somebody is doing it by walk, somebody by bicycle, somebody is trying to travel to every single country in some special way, of their own way, right? And when you come back home, you are welcomed in such a big way. It's like the return of the prodigal son. You've been on this adventure so that you can really discover what it also feels like to be away from home. You miss home. That's why you are seeking enlightenment. That's why you're seeking God, the truth, the kingdom of God, however you name it, because you know it's already your true home, your true state, your natural state, as it's called. We know this, but when we realize it experientially, which is such a such an interesting thing, because This whole time being who you are. Like, what do you mean? I've been through all this. What do you mean I'm back here? Wasn't I always here? There are a lot of teachers, especially in non-duality, who say, oh, you're already here. But this was also important. So I would say, look at the whole picture. Enjoy being here, once you're enlightened, which is in its own way an illusion. But, through this process, you somehow create a point where you say, okay, now I am ready, having gone through the ups and downs. Now I'm actually ready to go back. So, in a dualistic way, it is valid that you have an enlightenment experience. But at any point in this graph, this poorly drawn graph, at any point, no matter where you are, even at the lowest of lows, see how low this goes? This goes like below the graph. Even at this point below the graph, you are the same as here or here. And that is why God will find you. That is why one day or another, you're going to find yourself. It is inevitable. You're going to realize that this was all a dream. This dream can go on and on for lifetimes, right? And it doesn't matter. But there is a point when you're ready, like this point when you decide that enough of this ups and downs. I've had this experience. I remember who I am. I want to go back there. And before that, you may have experienced really dark times. But something in you says, I want to see the light. Enough of this duality. I'm tired of going up and down and up and down. It was fun. But after sitting on the roller coaster ride for long enough, there comes a time when you're like, okay, it was a fun ride. But it's gotten old at this point. I'm ready to come back to my natural state. Something deeper in you decides. And your being reveals to itself the fullness. And voila, or swaha, which means there it is. An enjoyment of who you are. Re-experiencing who you are. Enlightenment. Self-realization, God-realization, Satori, Samadhi, coming back to oneness. So this whole journey was perfect, because if you had just stayed here in your fullness and this never happened, you wouldn't have had this whole tale adventure to come back home and tell yourself. If you had just stayed home, you wouldn't have had the yearning of home, but you would be like, I'm just staying home this whole time. I'm so bored. I want to do something. So, this whole journey that you're having is perfect. So, know this. Don't believe something's wrong, even though it seems like it. Know that all is well. This all makes sense, right? Why all is well? It makes sense. It makes sense how everything is kind of predestined. People say it may not be predestined exactly as you may imagine in your head, but what is predestined is that you come back to this, your true nature, at some point, because you've never really been away. All this time, as you were seeking and searching, this was in you, the fullness that you're seeking, the deepest satisfaction, joy, peace, love, unconditional love, divine love. It has been with you this whole time, and now that you've decided, something happens in life that makes you seek it. In a more in a more, I wouldn't say serious, but sincere way. And you really start looking. You try to find a way back. You will go try to find it in books, in temples, and like all the list I said, in the mountains and the valleys. But finally, whether through an enlightened teacher, which is the case for many people who finally find it, because it was for me. For some people, they just wake up. They have a realization, like Eckhart Tolle. He was homeless, he was having a hard time in life, and in that suffering, he was like, oh, I'm awake now. That's much rarer. It's easier to see it in a reflection. That is why we have so many expressions of enlightenment, so that we can reflect to each other who we are. That is why the three jewels I talk about a lot. In Buddhism, there is the three jewels, which is known as the pathway to enlightenment, the surest path. Because you have so many reflections of the light, so many mirrors reflecting back to you who you are. Rather than trying to find it in the dark, let's say you are in a place that is covered by black matte surfaces and you are the light, and like it's like this black material they have, which is vanadium or something, or vanta black. That's the one, vanta black, where it's so black it does not reflect almost any light. Like 99 point something of the light is absorbed. But imagine if you were the light and you were standing in front of it, you can barely see any light being reflected back. That is how the dualistic world can feel sometimes. Even though you may have known in some way that everything is Buddha nature, like they say in Buddhism, everything has God in it, you're trying to see it and it doesn't reflect back to you because you are not ready yet. But imagine, instead of walking into a room full of Vanta black, you walk into a hallway of mirrors. where your light is reflected back to you in all these different ways. And then you see yourself again and again and again reflected multifold. In different colors, in different shapes, different sizes, concave, convex. And then you finally see, oh my God, this has been me the whole time. That is the beauty of the three jewels. And the three jewels does not mean that you become a Buddhist. It's a universal concept that can be applied. The three jewels is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, but it does not mean the Buddha, Gautama Buddha, but an enlightened teacher who can reflect back to you your enlightenment. The enlightened teacher doesn't give you anything, but reflects to you who you already are. So it's a pointing out that happens. So you're not really looking outside, in a way. Your attention is actually reflected back to you to go inside. It's like looking at a mirror and, oh, this is how I look, right? Like this thing can reflect the light over there. Like a mirror-like surface, right? And then the light can realize, oh, I am round. I'm a ring light. Because it's reflected back. And that is also what happens in the other two pillars, which is the Dharma, which is all this understanding, these teachings, empowered teachings, not just, conceptual teachings which give you more concepts, but enlightened teachings which take away your wrong concepts. And enlightened teachings are a transmission of awareness. And you actually see what's a deeper light that just shows you sometimes so surprisingly. And the Sangha is so many people who are going through this path, going through the teachings of enlightenment, where you feel a safe space to talk about your experiences with others, where you feel heard, where you feel seen, and you see others are going through this experience. They are a little bit forward, a little bit back, but you are going through this journey. And that allows you to actually integrate your experience in such a deep way, because you're not just seeing it as, oh, this teacher who has achieved it, who has seen it, who has accepted their enlightenment and is able to express it. But you also see somebody who hasn't gotten it yet, but they are the divine already, hasn't seen it yet, and then you see them seeing it. You see them getting enlightened, or you see their before and after. You're like, wow, something's different about this person. They're somehow happier. They feel more free. And then they tell you about their experience. It's magic. It works. This is the path for so many thousands of years. This has been how it has been done in the from the Vedic times. Mm. Then in Buddhism came from India, the land of Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, which means the eternal way. Right? So it all comes back to just realizing who you are, and when you're going through a path with a teacher, with fellow travelers on the path, and the teachings of enlightenment, it can look very different. The graph can have all sorts of things. So instead of going here, then you could kind of could go like this up. It need not be one single realization which takes you up there. It can, it went up and up and up. But there are still, the graph just doesn't shoot up. There are ups and downs like the stock market. The stock market can feel like, okay, it's going down, and it's like this one. It went up. Oh, it's going down. It's gonna go all the way down. But it's a temporary dip. So you buy the dip and you go up. I don't know. This is not stock market investment advice, right? But you see what I mean. All this to explain that you are it this whole time. And even the journey of losing and seeking and finding and losing it and finding it again. All this is okay. All is well, truly. No matter how is it going. No matter how you think you're doing, according to the ego mind, which can tell you sometimes, oh my God, I found it and I lost it again. I had one beautiful experience and now no matter how much I meditate, it just doesn't happen. Maybe I should try something else. Maybe I should just seek it in some other place. It's not like that. It's all okay. And when you're ready, God will find you. Know that you're not alone. Know that all the support that you need is here. And if I can support you in some way, feel free to reach out in the comments or on my website. And it's all okay. Oh, and if you want to understand deeply what I was talking about, the 3 jewels, I made a full video which goes into it, which is actually the pathway to enlightenment. So it's like a full guide to enlightenment. I'm linking it here, and you can click here to watch that next. Thank you so much. Namaste.